Hey, what's going on, guys? Phil here with some breaking news. As of 8 hours ago, something was leaked, and that something is right in front of you. This actually seems to be a leak from a PC Gamer UK website. As soon as I was online this morning, I started getting inundated with requests to cover this. The article, I think, was taken down very quickly, but we have all the juicy tidbits here. So the first thing is, I have to admit, I was wrong. We're not getting Mechwarrior 6. We're getting Mechwarrior 5 clans. As you can see right in front of this, this is the PC article. This is concept art of a Timberwolf. And as we expected, from all the sort of speculation going on prior, that we're going to get a follow-up. What we thought was Mechwarrior 6 clans is Mechwarrior 5 clans. Very interesting. I don't know if this is the title of the game. And to clarify, this is a completely different title. This isn't, from my understanding, this is completely separate from Mech 5 Mercenaries. That's my understanding. I have not read what we're about to cover, so maybe it talks a little bit more about that in this article. You know, this is a little bit of surprise, I think, to PGI that didn't expect this news to be divulged. I don't believe this was intended because the stuff was taken down, but it's already out there. I did reach out to Russ over at Piranha Games to possibly, you know, do a podcast. He seemed very open about it, but they have obviously got some stuff they have to figure out on their end. I believe this is a bit early. I don't believe this information was supposed to be out here, but it is out here. It's on the internet, and we're going to go ahead and dive into each one of these. So first off, not surprising that we're getting a clan version. It's just interesting that I was expecting Mechwarrior 6 clans instead of Mechwarrior 5. Now, let's go ahead and dive in here. My, of course, first thoughts on it is the most iconic mech ever, which is the Timberwolf. So that's always very cool. And of course, I love the concept by Alex Iglesias. Yeah, we're going to go dive in the details. I haven't read any of this. I just pulled it up really quick just to verify that it was like legit. It is. And we're just going to go over it. So this will be a first for me. I'll be reading and giving you guys my feedback on the next iteration of a single player and co-op Mechwarrior game coming to us soon. I don't know if they even mentioned a date, but we're going to take a look. Okay, so first off here, we have a cover feature, Mechwarrior 5 Clans, that looks to be the title. The first thing you're going to notice is a very large leopard class. This is a broadsword. That's the clans version of a broadsword. Dropship, very distinctly different. Actually really dig what they've done here. I think it's fantastic. But we're going to go ahead and start on this left side. This is where we're just going to read this as we go along. Mechwarrior's clans are weird. If the inner sphere constitutes the rump remains of an interstellar Rome, and the clans are the gene-splicy frontier techno-barbarians at the gate. Honor-bound and fanatical, the clans have their own notion of how the inner sphere should be governed, and in August of 3049, they're going to make it everybody's problem. I like it. Mechwarrior 5 Clan centers on a rookie star, a 5-mech squad from the Smoke Jaguars clan. Very interesting they're picking the Smoke Jaguars clan. Interesting. Okay. Seeing them from the end of their training to the participation in the clan invasion of 3049, a pivotal turning point in BattleTech tabletop lore. Like the Shadows of the Empire and the Yuuzhan Vong in Star Wars on the time of the Troubles in the Forgotten Realms, it was one of the those print era multimedia events that pressed reset on an established fictional setting. This is interesting. Again, sort of going back. So we found out that basically you're going to be participating in the clan invasion from the clan's perspective, or at least playing from the clan's perspective. You're a Smoke Jaguar, basically a newbie, if you will, but newbie and a rookie is sort of the wrong term to use here, because by the time you make it, especially in the Smoke Jaguars, how like dedicated they are for the warrior cast, you're very lethal. You've already been in multiple combat, operations. It's just obviously the big one here. The BattleTech's universe is supposed to be the shades of gray, but nobody can tell me these clan guys aren't space orcs. That's okay though. I love orcs, and the clanners bring with them not only a live, fast, die young ethos centered on their genetic mutations and warrior supremacy, but also on the best mechs, sleeker, more customizable OmniMechs. In contrast to the business-like dogs of war and Mechwarrior 5 mercenaries, clans will focus on an almost alien warrior culture that's held itself separate from the vast body of the humanity remaining in the inner sphere. In a throwback to the paired games of Mechwarrior past, Piranha Games is following up the 2019's Mercenaries with a partner game that approaches the battlefields of the far future in its own way. Okay, so let's go ahead and backstory here. So obviously this article is being written by someone at PC Gamer. This doesn't seem to be this isn't like quotes from Piranha Games. There's a little bit of live fast, die young. Yeah, but that's only in some parts of the clan. This is someone who's writing this, doesn't really know the lore, that there's actually a wide range of, it's like political leanings, left and right. You've got the wardens, and then you've got the crusaders, and then you have some clans that are sort of a mixture of both. You have some that promote longevity, and their cons, the leaders, are older, and then you have the smoke jaguars, which is if anything, they're they're crusader all the way. They're all about taking back the inner sphere and basically purging the inner sphere and starting anew. That's sort of the premise here. Wardens, crusaders. For those that don't know, wardens believe they should help shepherd the inner sphere back to prosperity and help them, whereas crusaders believe they should just start anew, if you will. And the smoke jaguars are literally like the extreme version of that. They're a 100% warrior caste system. The epitome of elite, warriors. Everybody below the warrior caste is meh, right? All right. Interesting. So throwback to the paired games following up. Let's see. So this is partner game. Keep that in mind. It says partner game. This is a different title than Mechwarrior 5 Mercenaries, even though it shares Mechwarrior 5 clans. Okay, Mercenaries delivered a galaxy full of battles to fight with predominantly procedurally generated levels underpinning a theoretically endless private military management fantasy. The backbone of Mercenaries, this is a quote, was a procedural regeneration system, Piranha CEO Russ Bullock explains, and you can see the star map. The dream was fly anywhere on the map, take missions, and fight there. The developer now wants to deliver a bespoke, handcrafted Mechwarrior campaign and make the Mechwarrior 5 clans a companion to Mercenaries that doesn't simply drop in a new roster of bipedal tanks. After visiting Piranha HQ in Vancouver and talking to some of the passionate developers there, nearly everyone who cited a lifelong love of BattleTech Mechwarrior, stretching back to PC classics like Mechwarrior 2, and into the midst of a tabletop era. I've got a feeling those freeburst scum in the inner sphere won't know what hit them. Okay, so what did we just find out there? This is not going to be a procedurally go anywhere and find anywhere. It looks like it's going to be handcrafted, I believe, campaign. That's what's here. That's interesting considering we did have some handcrafting going on with Mechwarrior 5 and some of the DLCs, and they were less than stellar for a few reasons. But anyways, tip of the spear. I played an early mission from clans set on Santander, a pirate-controlled world on the edge of the inner sphere. In the BattleTech lore, it's important as a point of first contact, reintroduction really, between the clanners and the inner sphere. From the inner sphere perspective, it's the brutal awakening to the outside threat that has returned from the edge of the galaxy. And for the Smoke Jaguar clan, it's a triumphant first strike on the gaggle of Bush League warlords. Okay, so you are... this is actually really cool that they're starting out from a sort of pivotal point when the clans start coming back from the periphery. If you look at the map of the inner sphere, if you northwest, south, east, even though it's three-dimensional, but they come in from the north, they start obviously encountering in periphery bandits and warlords and stuff outside of the known space. And one of the most iconic ones is Phalankel on the asteroid, right? That's sort of the pivotal ones out of the novels. For those that don't know, maybe you're listening to this and you're not a lore hound, it's been about 300 years. Kerensky's children, if you will, the descendants, who became the clans, left the inner sphere about 300 years prior. For everybody really, except Comstar doing what Comstar does, they pretty much just writ them off to, they're gone. They're never coming back. So the whole idea of the clans coming back was very much a clash of cultures. Also, if you think of it, they came in very quickly. The clans are very efficient. Efficiency is a big thing with the clans. And they were able to really wrap up really quickly. I mean, pirates and bandits and warlords, that wasn't going to be, that was not even a training mission for some of these, so it would have been very, very easy. Also, communication. Obviously, it's almost like a blitzkrieg, if you will, World War II reference of happening through the north of the inner sphere. So, though the level is very much a work in progress, Clan's new direction versus mercenaries was evident. Myself and 4 other members of the Star had to assault a fortified canyon held by Santander's ruling faction, tearing down strategic targets while fending off defenders. The canyon is a long, open-ended level with upper and lower paths, switchbacks, and opportunities for ambush for both you and the enemy. My first time through, I was flanked by 4 developers from Piranha controlling the rest of my Star. Clans will support up to 5-player co-op, increased from Mercenaries 4. There's even a lore explanation of that. Inner Sphere militaries organize their units in 4 mech lances, while clanners advance tech and superior warriors' instincts allow them to count up to 5. Okay, that's... okay. Again, the writer putting a spin on it. Yes, you have lances, and then you have company level at 12, battalion, and then regiment. So whereas the clans split from the Star to the clans get a little bit particular, trinary, binary. They have mixtures of different ones, clusters. Clans are a little bit different as far as their military structure. As far as the unit size, it can be very, very different. But yes, generally speaking, a 5 is a Star. You also have elementals in that. That's really interesting. I wonder if we're going to get elementals here. So it looks like this person playing. One thing I wish that he would have clarified. He says right here, I'd point out is that Clan's new direction versus mercenaries was evident. I wish they would have explained that a little bit more. He just sort of put that out there and left it. Didn't really get a contrast here of what he was talking about. The core modern Mechwarrior combat remains intact here, with the layers of armor and substructure translating to long times to kill on most mechs and demanding careful engagement with series location-based damage system. Management of your heat buildup is still front and center, with powerful energy weapons generating more heat than good old-fashioned bullets and missiles. As in most BattleTech games, different environments will contribute to how quickly you build up and dissipate heat. Ballistics have an all-new set of advantages dropping in a volcanic environment as opposed to a temporal grassland. And I'll go ahead and pause there before we switch over to the next thing here. But let's go ahead again, take a quick look. This is just concept art. This does not necessarily mean this is what it's going to look like. But concept art of the broadsword. The broadsword is just a more capable leopard class dropship clan, upgraded, obviously, weapon systems, aesthetics here. Actually really dig it. It's definitely different. Very organic, less angle, round, which I think is really dope. Down here in the bottom left here, I'll go ahead and remove my face really quick so we can take a quicker look here. This is a 3D model. You can see here sort of sketches of what it's interesting. What's interesting about this is that a lot of the BattleTech games and even Mechwarrior 5 made it to where Mechwarriors almost wear suits all the time, which actually isn't a thing in lore necessarily. There were suits. You did have a jacket that could help with the heat in the cockpit, but generally you actually didn't wear suits. This would actually be more of like infantry or something like that. It is interesting that they sort of went this route. I do get it though. I get the aesthetic of, if you will, of characters and the garb they wear. We have different sort of helmets here. That's another thing that's interesting, is that the idea of HUD, is it being displayed in your helmet. Neuro helmets, by the way, are in BattleTech. Neuro helmets are basically, they have these sensors in different locations. Mainly, predominantly, they're there to help the Mechwarrior and the balance of the mech. The mech will balance itself, but sometimes the Mechwarrior may want to off balance to avoid an object or an obstacle, or maybe even to put itself off balance to get away from enemy fire or whatever. The Mechwarrior is trained for that. That's generally the main use of the Neuro helmet. It is not controlling, it's not mind melding. The Mechwarrior does not feel the damage. It's nothing like that. Now, later on in BattleTech lore, things start getting a little bit more advanced as far as neurocircuitry and a little bit more mind meld connection. That's some of what the clans were doing. Speaking of which, I actually Jaguar later on. Spoiler alert: Jaguars don't make it in the long run. But anyways, I like it. I dig it. I like it'd be interesting too if you actually in this game, if you're able to choose what you look like or your pilots look like, if there's more customization there. Don't know again if that we're going to cover this, but I like the concepts here. That would be really dope. That's one thing drastically missing from Mech 5. Also, you as a character, main character, if you actually have a 3D model, I always wanted Mech 5 to where you could walk around. Anyways, I digress. Let's go ahead and continue. With the devs backing me up, I made it through the Santander Trench, run smoothly, and for my next attempt, I went in as a sole human. Human player, directed my star with surprisingly detailed list of squad commands. You can get an assortment of tactical options from each individual member of crew as well as the group as a whole. But just like with every RTS, my preferred strategy here was select all and attack. This is actually going back to one of the things I was critical about with Mech 5 is there's just simple attack, form on me, stop firing, go here. It would be interesting, and we don't know if they expanded that. It'd be great if they did, where if you could pull up on the mini map, issue more complex commands. It'll be interesting if they go that route, especially being the clans and how advanced their tactics and training were, if they incorporated that. This iteration of assault on Santander was much more flight by night affair, but by God, I still pulled it off even after suffering two full dismemberments myself. The pirate shot off one of my arm cannons pretty early on, a severe firepower impediment, but the loss of one leg was way worse and entirely my fault. I was having a little bit too much fun with my mech's jump jets, you see, and this is a game with fall damage. After landing my 75-ton Timberwolf and my bum leg a few too many times, the old girl gave up the ghost. Switching to a third-person view, my ride wasn't looking so hot. Bullock is very proud of how Piranha has been able to represent the progressive destruction of both mechs and environment, and both were on full display as I limped through Santander. Hobbling on my poor Timberwolf was also missing an arm. Meanwhile, bulldozing through Pirates' flimsy little buildings let me peek through into their structures and interiors as the rooftops crumbled away at waist height. Destruction feels good in this game. All right, so a few things there just to sort of note is that it looks like just from the comments that you're going to have fall damage. You have the multiple states of destruction. I hope they improve that, especially the aesthetics here. Looks like you still have, destruction level on Mech 5 where pretty much all the buildings are destructible, even walls and so forth and so on. That's doesn't seem like there's any difference there. The graphical commitment to my miserable lemon of a mech, as well as the sheer difficulty increase I lost functionality, made successfully completing my mission this second time all the sweeter, as I just barely cleared the final enemy mechs and gently feathered my jump jets to descend to an evac point down in the canyon. I felt like the one of those characters in wacky races, skidding across the finish line on their bum while holding a detached steering wheel. Hey, it's a win's a win. I can worry about mech repairs when I'm playing clans on my home PC. Obviously, you're going to be having repairs here. This isn't really surprising reading this. It may be that again, if you're coming into a Mechwarrior game and you don't know how to control or operate a fire handle to negate enemy fire and you're running around, I'm not surprised. If it's an early mission, you'd probably an experienced pilot wouldn't have as much issue. But anyways, let's continue. Santander already looks good with red rocky cliffs contrasting against clear blue sky like something out of an American Southwest. The pirates' harsh industrial installations and gleaming white satellite dishes seal the deal, selling this utilitarian military place, but it's still distinctly Earth-like at the moment. That's subject to change, according to Piranha art director Dennis D. Koenig. Koenig wants the final version of the Santander to be defined by veins of placent blue crystal running through rock faces of the world using subsurface scattering tech to sell this version dreamlike, multicolored alien canyons hijacked for petty frontier warfare. The notion of spiking the familiar or rocky canyons with bizarre opalescent veins of alien crystal is D. Koenig's go-to for selling the otherwise otherworldly vistas of the inner sphere. The first thing I try to do, quote, first thing I try to do is to ground these environments in reality. He tells me, adding that the best lie is the laced with truth. The artist mentioned, only half joking, that he has a reference file of weird rock formations to draw on for inspiration, hoping to avoid overused touchstones, Batum Tish, like the popular column basalt formation, see Dragon Age, so forth. Anyways, in Mercenaries, Piranha focused on traveling anywhere in the inner sphere with the, okay, let's back up here. You know, I'm obviously looking at like this image here, Red Rock. Yes, it's very reminiscent of like the you know, Nevada and Utah, I guess, and, you know, stuff like that. A Grand Canyon. Actually, I don't think that would be crazy. I mean, you'd have look at pictures of Mars and some other planets. Like, not everything is gonna have a lush look to it. Also, some of the basic minerals and materials in the universe. You'd see a lot of this potentially. What's interesting here, no mention, by the way, of if this is Unreal 5 or if this is Unreal 4. For those that don't know, Mechwarrior 5 is in Unreal 4. It would be interesting to know because that could help out with a lot of things, performance-wise, of course, tech-wise, but also just the pipelines and so forth. It'll be interesting if they answer that on this. All right, let's get back to it. In Mercenaries, Piranha focused on traveling anywhere in the inner sphere with a fantasy supported by procedural generation tools for both environments and missions. Yes and no. It's not fully procedural like you hear in other stuff, but yeah, let's go from there. Clan's more authored experience will have a limited number of worlds, but you'll go deeper on each of them. Planets will have multiple story missions associated with them, all with a new level of focus on polish in their design. That's a big part of why Koenig and his team have to nail the look of these planets. The vein, opalescent rocks, massive desert geoglyphs of Santander will have to unify several missions under the same aesthetic and really sell the alternate reality of this world. I was particularly taken with Koenig and his team's concepts for Luthien. Interesting. The capital world of the clan's antagonist faction, the Draconis Combine. The faction has drawn on Imperial Japanese influences since the tabletop days, and Piranha is crafting tower megacities reminiscent of Akira for us to do battle in. Koenig described one level on Luthien as being set amongst the sprawling acreage of the faction leader's royal gardens, with colossal torii gates towering over the mechs doing battle in once pristine green space. Now, before we go any further, that basically is going to say you are going to participate in the invasion, and it looks like you're going to participate in the Battle of Luthien. For those that don't know, that's a huge battle, and it's the first time to note that the Draconis Combine allows mercenaries on their planet and helps them defend against the Smoke Jaguars. There's an epic scene in one of the novels of like the clans, hundreds of mechs getting in a formation of a giant spear. Just imagine, it's like watching like the Rohirrim on Lord of the Rings. Just now you're in 3-4 story tall war machines of multi-ton facets, but spearing up and pushing into the front lines of the inner sphere. Spoiler alert. Well, actually, I'll leave it. Read the novels. It's good. But this is very interesting because, again, that's a pretty long time of events and what would be happening with the clans here. So anyways, very, very cool. Let's continue. On the opposite side of the conflict, Koenig was particularly keen to show off the Smoke Jaguar homeworld of Huntress. Interesting. Mechwarrior 5 clans will be leaning into lore descriptions of the planet, having a number of jungle and tropical biomes, with missions taking place under dense tree canopies or even in great swamps. Although Koenig pointed to the floating islands and other more fantastical elements of Avatar, as which he's hoping to avoid with Mechwarrior's environments, I couldn't help but notice this distant Pandora, Thwong, and all this megaflora cut by cascading waterfalls and the sleek advanced military hardware crushing through. Very interesting, Huntress. So this wouldn't actually make sense if at the very beginning of the game you are playing as a new Mechwarrior, or you're training. So this could be a tutorial training sort of series. You're going through your trials to become a Mechwarrior. You have one-on-one and other combat. It would be on Huntress. That is where the homeworld, is. For those who don't know, the homeworlds of the clans are literally a year of light year jumps, 30 plus light year jumps. It takes a year to get there. It's a big deal later on in BattleTech lore. But anyways, Huntress is the homeworld, the Smoke Jaguars, and it actually, Operation Serpent. I'll leave it at that. For those who don't know, that's go read the books. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into the next bit here. And before we do, let's go ahead and take a quick look. Here is some 3D artwork. Now, I think there's something to be, it says, okay, Piranha is dabbling in more advanced motion capture for its digital actors. This is so important. So important. Okay, for me, it's one of those things where the lack of emotion and connection with your crew and or characters, if you will, in your story, Rihanna, Fahad, you don't even care about anybody else. It's actually really important. And if this could actually be pretty big, because for those that don't know, Unreal Engine, and I believe 5, has new software to where you can motion capture very easily with an iPhone. So it allows you to be able to quickly iterate and then implement motion capture. And then not only that is you can use the same on different models, like the same face motions on different models and stuff like that. So this is big. Kudos. We've needed better character realism, if you will, but also just that it looks believable. I mean, it's 2023. This game might be, I don't know when it's coming out, 2023, 2024, I don't know. But yeah, that's very nice. I'm glad about that. Also, it says, nice operation you got here. Be ashamed if someone went in there and stepped on it. Let's see. The clan's genetically engineered invaders are just like us, sort of. Let's see here. Smoke Jaguar, aggressive, savage, and warrior supremacist like fighter pilots in design games. Smoke Jaguar is your hometown faction in clans. Yeah, I mean, aggressive, savage, warrior, supremacist. Yeah, that's definitely them. They're genetically engineered. I think we have to clarify that too. The clans use a sort of like a genetic breeding system where you have to earn the right for your genes to be entered into a pool. So there's no free birth, if you will, which is the term for having a baby, getting pregnant and having like a free birth, if you will. That's where that term comes from. Free born, free birth. The clans are all genetically test tube babies for the most part. Not all of them, by the way. There's different castes. There are still free births in the clans. Surprise. Most of them are not in the warrior caste. There are exceptions to that. One of my favorite characters becomes even a Khan in one of these. Clan Wolf, into honor and tradition more than your average mech samurai. Wolf lets their members have a lot of personal freedom. Darn cool clan emblem too. Yeah, actually honor is across the board. That's not particular just Clan Wolf. Honor and tradition are across the board. No clan is without honor and tradition, even the Smoke Jaguars. Clan Jade Falcon, unlike many other clans, Clan Jade Falcon are proponents of mixed arms, not placing mechs on pedestals above vehicles and other weapons of war. That's interesting. I mean, yeah, they're not really known. I mean, Hell's Horses is the ones known for like combined arms and tanks before mechs sort of thing. Clan Ghost Bear regarded as patient and cautious. They also get together once a year to hunt bears with spears. Win the clan a naming competition comfortably too. That's true. They do that. They all have their own unique things here. I do like the fact that they kept the sort of original look of the emblems here and logos. I am glad they didn't redo them like they tried to do with the MWO. I don't think that went over too well. All right, let's get back to here. Handcrafted. In conversation with Piranha design director Paul Inoue, I learned how these... Oh, so there's where Paul's been. Hello, Paul. I learned how these alien worlds will play host to some of the most intricate mission design Piranha has done to date, with a focus on surprising handcrafted content. This isn't entirely new territory for Piranha, with the studio already having moved in this direction with Mechwarrior 5 Mercenaries various DLC expansions. Inoue seems thrilled at the level design possibilities on offer with game that isn't shooting for the sheer number of planets as Mercenaries. He described haggling with the project's programmers and engineers, wanting to have the tools to craft the most minute story beats and NPC interactions in mission. It's about bringing the control back to the level designer's hands, Inoue tells me. Being able to tell stories with intent, being able to focus down on what you want the player to experience. Yes! Hands down, this is very important. This is, again, a big gripe I had with 5 Mercenaries, I should say, which is the lack of that. It's interesting that they said minute story beats and NPC interactions and missions. One of the issues in Mercenaries was that there would be like diatribe monologues by villains while shooting's going on, and you couldn't hear, you couldn't understand. There's a thing called pause, and that should happen. But that'd be great to hear. That's one of my big critiques of Mercenaries, is the lack of depth and substance. Like, you have this big thing, and it really doesn't matter. So that's cool. While the devs I talked to acknowledge there are advantages to procedural generation for making certain kind of games, they all seem excited about returning to something more bespoke. Inoue is especially keen on being able to have, as ordinary as it may sound, actual visual storytelling in level now. Mercenaries' proc gen system largely precluded Inoue's team being able to do things like crafted sightlines, vistas showing players a specific shot at a specific time. Think the Reaper taking off in Mass Effect opening mission interview of the Citadel of Half-Life 2. Inoue even recalls working on Mercs and I just saying, hey, can we move this rock over here to change the sightlines? The answer was no, because if you do that, the rock will move in all these procedural generation tiles. So that's actually a very important thing here. They say procedural generation, but really what Mercenaries uses is a tile system, and then that tile system has basically like presets. You can set it to use these certain tiles with these buildings or this terrain. It's not like it's all AI driven and it's all procedural. That's why all the maps in Mercenaries are a rectangle or a square. Again, it's almost like a grid system. That's what the tiles are. So what they're basically saying here is they weren't actually able to change those things because it changed the tiles, which then would mess with other stuff. So having just looks to be a campaign handcrafted experience, you don't really have to worry about that. One of the most exciting things I hear on the entire trip, though, was Inoue's description of a later game mission and the sort of non-standard levels he wants to put in clans. There are ships that are trying to leave this airbase, and you're only there to monitor them for any sort of contraband. Basically, you're a border cop now. In the proposed mission, players have to scan departing ships for contraband, allowing cleared vehicles to pass unmolested, but opening fire on the first signs of smugglers. It doesn't end there either, with Inoue telling that the players then have to investigate the crash site they created and secure the contraband. Okay. To me, this sounds like kind of small gameplay moment that might make clans feel more than a non-stop slugfest between mechs. My mind went to Metal Gear Solid 5 and that one simultaneously beautiful and awful mission where you have to intercept tank convoys rolling in from all across the map. Trank darting and crouch walking gets replaced with frantic horseback riding, trap settings, and Fulton recovery system antics. And anyways, out their proposed mission has me excited to get the same sense of panic, delightful surprise out of the clans. This is a different kind of mission. Your comfortable strategies don't work here. Figure it out. All right, industrial design. The mechs themselves remain as core to the experience as ever, and the process of creating them begins with Piranha concept art Alex Iglesias. Iglesias' more grounded industrial take on classic BattleTech designs have won praise from the community and even come full circle to influence the modern tabletop game. That's definitely very true. Revisiting clan mechs, though, is a major undertaking. These models have decades of history to live up to. A fraught history of copyright issues with a series like Robotech to avoid, but that's another story, and some notable differences from the chassis we saw in Mercenaries. According to Iglesias, Clan and Intersphere have different tech bases, with Clanners usually being the climax, typically higher performance, higher tech, more advanced. Their stuff is usually lighter, it shoots faster. For real-world touchstone, Iglesias points to the contrast between the rugged, old-fashioned, higher-caliber material of the Soviet Union and the sleeker, more elegant designs adopted by NATO during the Cold War. The clan mechs also possess fundamental mechanical differences that have proven challenging from Piranha, both an artistic and design perspective. The clan's OmniMechs are inherently more modular than their Inner counterparts, letting players swap out their limbs and associated hardpoints or weapon mount locations. While a typical mech might be limited to large energy weapons mounting point on a limb, a clan mech could swap that limb out for one of the supports a larger ballistic weapon or maybe two small energy weapons. Don't the clan mechs just kind of seem better than Inner counterparts? The fact that their loadouts and roles can be changed up so easily has proven difficult enough to balance, especially in a multiplayer game like Piranha's Mechwarrior Online, but it's also a huge aesthetic challenge for Iglesias and Piranha's other two 2D and 3D artists. The mechs always has to look the part, and the same weapon Iglesias and Koenig used a missile battery as an example might have to be remodeled any number of times to look just right on each individual mech. Luckily, Iglesias comes to process with a lifelong love of BattleTech and takes no end of joy reinterpreting the original FASA Corporation tabletop designs. Okay, so this is actually, I don't see that as much of an issue here. That's actually interesting that, I mean, they brought up basically OmniMechs and how difficult they are with the Omnipod system, and you want the LRMs to look normal on a Timberwolf, and that LRM box ear isn't going to look the same on a Mad Dog. They already have that with Mechwarrior Online, which is interesting. They already have a high poly model and high poly weapon models, and the reason I found this is weird is they brought it up as like that's a challenge, is they already have that solved, which is interesting. I don't know why this was as much there, other than basically saying, yeah, it's a challenge, but we already have an entire game that has answers to that, and they're going to be reusing that. Same thing was done. The models that we had in Mercenaries are MWO models, albeit the damage models, they had to do new one or make them, but that would have been the same here anyway. So that was a weird, I don't really understand why there's that. But anyways, some things to note here. Don't the clan mechs just kind of seem better than the Inner counterparts? That's the quote here. Yeah, I mean, that's what happens when you have 300 years of unobstructed technological science and engineering happening. Concept of Santador with more of that opalescent rock on display. That's pretty cool. That's definitely different looking. Property values in this Draconis city are about to plummet. Okay, so this is, of course, the concept for like Luthien or Draconis combined plan. Very, very different than what we saw. I'd almost say it gives you future sort of dystopian, almost like Judge Dredd, the city, and the wall, and then like Star Wars, like new stuff. So that's pretty cool. All right, mechs of the clan, some chassis we expect to see. Obviously, the Timberwolf says the Timberwolf's hulking digigrade legs and egg torso give it the most iconic clan silhouette you should be afraid to shake a stick at. Bird leg, not digigrade. Digigrade is oh man, you know when a BattleTech fan doesn't know what he's talking about. So all right, anyways, Mad Dog, reminiscent of Apache attack helicopter. The Mad Dog looks like a hawkish predatory bird with power to level city blocks. I mean, the deadly bird and it being on that, I mean, that's, yeah. Summoner looking goofy with an offset cockpit and a giant barrel full of missiles on one shoulder. The Summoner is still the clan bread and butter. Direwolf, the massive Direwolf, looks more like a bunker with legs than any other mech. With its staggering firepower, the comparison is scarily accurate. Now, I don't know if they're going to cover it, but they sort of touched on, again, the mech lab and customization. It's going to be interesting how they do this. I mean, obviously with Mercenaries, you didn't really have a whole lot of customization until mods came around. For this, I wonder if they're just going to be pretty much using what they use in Mechwarrior Online. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, for the most part, unless they have 2C mechs, you can't change the engines out of the standards, if you will. If they sort of do the Mercenaries route, I would suppose with these is, hey, you can swap Omnipods, but again, just like MWO, that actually the OmniMech sort of fit that system a little bit better, just because you don't have to worry about engines and all that anyways. Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and do sound off here. Piranha principal audio designer Sean Colton is in charge of the crucial pieces of Mechwarrior 5 clan puzzle, the unique sci-fi soundscape of the battlefield of the future. Mechs are funny, Colton tells me, because you don't have any in-world to base sound on. We've got tanks and excavators and all manner of horrific machines, but these real-world analogs are far from the bipedal warfighting platform of the 31st century. So Colton and his team have to get creative. It's a mixture of the two synthetics of real-world sounds and a lot of processing on real-world sounds. Even metal impacts, there aren't a lot of real, deep, heavy metal impacts. When I asked him about the favorite real-world samples of mechs, he told me about the one that got away. I was at the beach with my son. There was a massive accident. Everyone was okay, and it was the loudest explosion sound I'd ever actually heard. And that was the first time I thought, wow, that's a giant crack for, that's a great crack for an autocannon sound. That almost obsessive dedication has resulted in soundscape that's uniquely Mechwarrior. There's not quite anything else in the game like the muted thud of your footsteps as you stomp across the battlefield, the sound dulled ever so believably by your insulated cockpit and the hum of the machinery underneath you. The clans Colton hopes to maintain kind of fidelity while also differentiating the clan mechs from their grungier, less refined inner sphere counterparts. All right. For clans, I want to do something completely distinct at the same time. To me, the cast of the clans in the universe is grittier, starker. Colton explained, I keep on going back to those old Terminator scenes, Terminator 1 and 2, where they do the flashback, or I guess flash forward to the future of those massive battles. The clan mechs are going to have a starker, cleaner sound to them to match their technology profile, and Colton wants fans to play the two games, Mercenaries, Clans, and have a completely different audio experience. That drive extends to the soundtrack as well. Colton main's focus on Go Around. Mercenaries OST is a fan favorite, with Colton bringing his own passion as a metalhead to guitar-heavy tracks that are firmly music you can lift weights to. With Clans, it's going to be more of a synths and ambient dread kind of vibe. The music on Santander level reminded me of driving the Mako across uncharted worlds in the original Mass Effect. And Colton cited the likes of John Carpenter and Nine Inch Nails as influences on where he's taken the Clan's soundtrack. Interesting that he's talking about weapon sounds, and basically, like, to me, I've always felt weapon sounds, especially in Mechwarrior Online, have needed a redo, if you will. But they did mention like being inside and how you're insulated. I can relate to that. Obviously, being a tanker, you have a lot of, I mean, if there's any type of hydraulic systems, you have a large hum of hydraulics going on. You can imagine a reactor underneath you, like a hum. You can probably feel just a slight vibration from it, churning and wielding power there. That would be an interesting sort of thing, very particular when it comes to sound. I think sound is very, very important, especially weapon-wise. They need to sound like they're visceral and dangerous. So forging ahead, Mechwarrior 5 Mercenaries was the first numbered installment of the series in almost 20 years, a key part of a wave of new school mech sim hits, breathing new life into what was once practically a pillar of PC gaming. Mechs might have been one of the biggest games in gaming, Bullock muses when I asked him about the second wind the scene has found in recent years. It hasn't been for a while, but it's gaining steam. I think even with what we've done with Mechwarrior, we've seen the brand slowly get revitalized. We've seen what Catalyst is doing with their pen and paper stuff. Now, for the first time in decades, you're seeing BattleTech and Target. They're making a big resurgence. And I think the work we've done over the last 10 to 12 years has played a big part in the resurgence. Clans looks to continue that resurgence, then bringing more refined, authored level designs and storytelling, hopefully matching Mercenaries' sheer breadth of content with newfound depth. I, for one, am excited to load up with a Hellbringer and aim for legs when the Mechwarrior 5 clan launches sometime in 2024. So there we go. We actually have a time frame, 2024. Let's go ahead and take a quick look here. There's something else in gaming like the muted thud of your footsteps. We have a Timberwolf, and it looks to be I don't know. I don't know if that's supposed to be like a different direwall. It almost looks like a back of an avatar, but that would be interesting because that's sort of that would be, yeah, that wouldn't be. I love this scenery. I mean, that's a landscape we've never seen. Like that's pretty amazing. That almost gives me, especially this Timberwolf here, that's a different back, by the way. I don't know if anybody, like, if you can see this, that's not your MWO Timberwolf. As far as that's almost like a redone. I mean, even the legs here, guys. This is not. That's very interesting. That's a different Timberwolf. That's like a throwback to the OG. Yeah, I don't know if that probably won't be what we see, which would be unfortunate because I do love that sort of sleeker, more look instead of big, blocky, and thick Timby. Anyways, we've got another view of the broadsword here. Also, we've got environmentalists and clans are diverse. Above, big stomping mechs called big transporters. Right? Yeah, I'll take one of those to the left. That's obviously another dropship. What does it take to make a mech? Let's go ahead and I'll turn off my camera here. Concept phase, a new mech starts with a concept art from Alex Iglesias adapting one of the original tabletop designs into something that fits Piranha's direction for the series. Timeline, 3 to 4 weeks. Sculpting, Piranha 3D texture artists then create the in-game assets, including cockpit, camo variations, and battle damage. Piranha will reuse animations from similarly sized mechs when possible. Time, 11 weeks. I wonder if that's combined time, so like 3 to 4, or is it just straight 11 weeks? That seems quite, yeah. So yeah, I think it's combined. Quality assurance. Next comes implementation in game and various QA passes. The feel of a mech trumps everything, even the realism of the fictional world. Total time, 3 to 4 months for one mech. Now, wow, that's we also have a brief BattleTech timeline. You can go down here. Mechwarrior 5 Mercenaries was set in 3015-ish, time frame. And went forward, and then of course it sort of left off with like, oh, your dad might be part of the clans or something like that. I wonder if they're gonna have a throwback to that. It'll be interesting seeing what happens here. So, wow, man, my initial thoughts are that's a lot of information. Again, to sort of reiterate, this information news I don't think was supposed to be out this early. But yeah, and of course, I'll cover any new stuff that comes out. I have reached out to Russ, as I mentioned, possibly to do a podcast. Let's see if what happens there. There's a lot going on here. They are no longer doing the procedural generation system across the inner sphere like Mercenaries. What are my thoughts on that? I actually think that's a smart play on their part. You can develop more. You can make a planet and multiple missions feel more lived in and have depth and substance than you can when you're trying to do a lot across the board. I like the idea of storytelling. I like the idea of characters. I like the idea of motion capture actually being used in a modern engine. Voice acting is important. The storytelling is going to be interesting. Again, I feel like the storytelling was lackluster in Mercenaries, and in this, it's one of those things where I really hope they knock it out of the park. I don't know if that means you need to bring in story writers or what. I don't know how that works behind the scenes. If they've been doing that, I'm assuming so. And then also just how they present it. Are you going to use 3D assets telling stories? Or are you going to pause and do 2D, animated stuff like HBS did with BattleTech? Either or, I'm fine with. I think they'll probably go the more 3D route, especially if they are using Unreal 5. Nothing mentions Unreal 5 here, but I would go ahead and assume that it's going to be. I think a lot of studios were going from 4 to 5, I think, fairly easily. Okay, what else do we got? The biomes, love to see stuff like this. This would be absolutely fantastic. I think visually, the game hopefully looks better than Mercenaries, graphically and performance-wise and so forth and so on. Yeah, across the board. Again, I wasn't expecting this this morning. I mean, we did know Russ said news was coming in September, so I guess there's that. But just we haven't seen them post anything. This article in particular was taken down immediately, but people had grabbed images. So thank you for those that did that for me to be able to cover this. Yeah, I'm sure the PC Gamer article will eventually come out. But yeah, across the board, it's interesting. We're not surprised. At least I'm not. We were sort of predicting Mech 6 clan invasion. Here we are, Mech 5 clan invasion, if you will, clans. looks like you're going to be participating as a Smoke Jaguar in the invasion, and you're going to be following potentially a linear. That's one thing they didn't really talk about, is like the linear. Is it going to be like a linear story system of like missions, like you do this, but eventually is it going to do that? Even Mechwarrior 2 Mercenaries sort of did that, which is, yes, you're able to do these side missions, but eventually you had to do the overarching across the way. So there's that. Another thing I thought was interesting is how they talked about honor and how the clans are. The clans, for the most part, fight on a 1v1 until that is broken. Zelbriggen, it is the term. Basically is the clans believe in efficiency. You'll see a lot of challenges between the clans to resolve conflicts, i.e., I'll challenge you for a 1v1 fight. You say agreed, but then I get to pick the place, or I get to pick mechs or hand-to-hand, stuff like that. So it'll be interesting sort of seeing how they handle that in missions. Obviously, if like you're ambushed and multiple start shooting you, it's all hands loose. You just engage everything. I wonder if there'll be any punitive stuff like your honor or type of system where you can remain in good faith, if you will. I wonder if you're going to be interacting with the other clans. That's going to be, are we going to participate in Tukiad? For those that don't know, that's a big turning point in the BattleTech universe and a big fight. And yeah, so I'm really excited about this overall. There was details in here that I think, for me at least, address some of the key issues I had with Mercenaries. Like I said, the lack of depth and substance when it came to missions, storytelling. We've never really had good storytelling in a BattleTech game until HBS BattleTech. I would have loved to seen a follow-up from them, because I think they could have taken it even further. And I think that's much needed in a Mechwarrior game. So there we have it. We have Mechwarrior 5 Clans coming in 2024. And we'll be obviously playing it and covering it here as soon as possible. Whenever official news of this comes out, I will follow up. I'm trying to get a podcast with Russ and Piranha Games to go over some of this. Is there more information they'd like to talk about? Basically dive in here. Was there more to the article, and so forth? So, yeah, man, I'm excited. It's cool to see possibly, the invasion coming from the clan's perspective. I think it'll be very alien to a lot of people. I hope they've done the clans justice, because even though, yes, it's a warrior caste society, it's not all just barbarians of, clan command is disappointed in you, stuff like that. You're talking about highly trained individuals. Think of like your best fighter pilots out there, your best operators out there. That's who these warriors are. They're not just dumb, mindless barbarians and mechs. Quite the contrary. And I think it's very important to sort of make that distinction. I think that's sort of how clans have been portrayed. I mean, the BattleTech cartoon, propaganda, whatever you want to call it. The clans are very, very sophisticated, very, very dangerous. They have their faults, though, and that'll be interesting if those systems are used against the clans and you as a player in those battles. So more to come as this comes on. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Are you excited for this? Is this addressing some of the things that you wanted to see out of the next installment of a Mechwarrior game? Are you happy about the lack of procedural systems or being able to travel? Did you like that sort of system? Are you looking forward to more handcrafted missions? For me, on that note, I hope they raise the bar a bit. I was not happy with the level of storytelling and or I would say depth of that in Mech and Mercenaries. I think it needed to be a lot better, especially when you compare it to other games, even Space Marine 2 here. Other games have raised the bar, I feel like, So are you guys happy? Are you excited? Again, if you found this video informative, if you like this, again, make sure to click that like button. Let me know down in the comments down below. What clan mech are you most looking forward to? And I'll see you guys on the next video. And as soon as news comes out about this, I will continue to cover it. So I'll see you guys on the next video. Until next time.